Thank you, Dr. Sheikh. Good evening, everyone, and good morning to those the time zone in the morning. So, may I share my screen now?
Yes, madam. Yes.
I can hear your background. It's overlapping. Okay, thank you, Dr. Sheikh. Can you see my slide? Is it clear, Dr. Sheikh?
Yes,
Can you?
madam. We can see
Okay,
you.
thank you. Um, Again, good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. I'll be presenting some of the factors that here in the Philippines we normally consider in designing curriculum, especially in the era of blended learning. We all know that for almost or more than 2 years, all countries in the world are very much affected by this pandemic. So with the impact of this pandemic, most of the institutions here in the Philippines decided to review, revisit, re-engineer the curriculum so that it will be attuned to the current situation.
Excuse me,
So
ma'am.
design, yes.
Sorry for interrupting, but can you make your screen full? Full screen, please.
Okay, so okay. Ayan. What about this, Dr. Sheikh? Is it now in full
Thank you,
screen?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank
You're
you.
in full screen.
So in most cases, of course, with the current situation, most of the institutions, both universities, colleges, in public and private, decided to, review, revisit, re-engineer the curriculum in order to make it more relevant to the current situation. So we all know that gone are the days that we still use the traditional pedagogies. We cannot go back to teaching the way we have been so far, especially nowadays that here in the Philippines, we're moving from blended, hybrid, and now we're adopting high flex. So meaning to say gradually we're moving to allowing our students to come to school, but still on a gradual movement so as to protect and to give them more safe environment when they go back to school. And of course, we have this systemic shift, the use of various technology in teaching, no, in the teaching modality, applying learning management system in order for us to reach out to our students in order to deliver various courses to our students. The use of mobile devices, the use of tablets, the use of computers are very much in now in relation to the delivery of the uh, learning teaching modalities. Even the digital tools in online education, for the last 2 years, online education was very much evident here in the Philippines because uh, in order to continuously deliver education, online was adopted. As I have mentioned, we started from blended, where the digital learning and the limited a transfer or limited the number of students allowed to face-to-face learning was already implemented, and now we're moving to hybrid, partially online and partially face-to-face, especially for the professional subjects. And now we also moving to the high flex, where combination of the offline, the asynchronous or asynchronous, blended learning, and even the online now are being adopted in most schools here in the Philippines. In the design of the curriculum, as I have said, the revisit, no, being done in the curriculum here in the Philippines, and re-engineering it so as to make it adaptable to the current trends and situation. Most schools usually this direction. So knowing what actually the direction of each institution, especially with the current trend, current situation, will be the basis in order to develop changes, development, or even innovation in the curriculum of each program. So we start with the revisiting the mission, vision, values of and higher education memorandum orders. Each program has a separate memorandum order, which we need to follow the basic requirements in terms of reviewing the curriculum. Of course, we have to consider also the Philippine qualification framework so that we're following the international standards, particularly in the baccalaureate degree, the masteral program, and even the doctoral programs, and that pertains to level 6, 7, and 8 respectively. Nowadays, we know that a lot of unforeseen events happening in the different parts of the world, and that is why VUCA world is very much evident. VUCA means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I think this one is very important for us to adapt to the current changes that would be beneficial to the students and to the educational institution as a whole. Of course, the emergence of fire, the fourth industrial revolution, the continuous changes in the emergence of technology affects not only the educational sector, but all sectors in the world. With this emergence of fire or the fourth industrial revolution, technology keeps on changing. And of course, another factor that we consider in terms of the enhancement of curriculum is the consideration of the future skills required in the 21st century, especially those jobs that are very much in demand in the 21st century. Researches done by several educators or scientists pertaining to determining what are the things that we should consider in the development of the curriculum are also considered in the revisiting the curriculum of each institution. Suggestions coming from the industry practitioners to match the gap between the industry and the academe also considered, and of course the CTP or the current trends, issues, and problems of the economy are also being considered in the development of curriculum. So to start with one of the examples with regard to the policies and guidelines being implemented by the Commission on Higher Education, focuses on the articulation on the use of two languages, of course, English and Filipino for the Philippine economy, the multidisciplinary consideration so that some of the courses integrated in the curriculum would be relevant not only from one field of specialization, but also in various fields of specialization as written in the Philippine Qualification Framework Level 6. Likewise, the adoption of basic concepts, particularly aligned to the field of specialization, are being considered also in the development curriculum. And of course, as I've said, researches, analysis on the current trends in the business environment, if it's about the BSBA programs or the business programs, we also consider what are the things or the new things happening in the real world of business. So these are the things that we also incorporate when we develop or when we design changes or innovation or adapt innovation in the curriculum. Of course, as I have said, the PQF, which of course includes the national standards, equivalent also to international standards, so that our graduates can also easily adapt. When they go out the country and work abroad, they can easily find jobs suited their field of specialization. So we have the level 6, 7, and 8. And this is the Philippine Qualification Framework. As you can see, those who finish grade 10 up to grade 12, they can also take some certification. This is enhancement of their skills if they cannot go to college because of limited financial support. They can actually look for jobs through the certification program given by our government agency called TESDA. And then if they want to go to the 4-year degree program, they can go to level 6, 7, and even up to postdoctoral, which is level 8. So this is actually the framework that we're following as far as the development of our curriculum is concerned. So these are the things, example on level 6 for the graduate, undergraduate degree. The KSA or the knowledge, skills, and attitudes are also being considered, of course, the application and the degree of independence or interpersonal, also included with regard to enhancement or re-engineering of the curriculum of any particular program. Challenges in the book world is very also important because any unforeseen events that usually happens in one particular country would definitely affect, the development or improvement of the educational system. The unforeseen events like this pandemic, COVID-19, we were not prepared, when pandemic came in, and then here comes another, the monkeypox. So these are some of the unforeseen events that sooner or later, if they will not be addressed properly, will basically again affect not only the educational sector but all sectors, including agriculture, manufacturing, industrial, service, etc. So the book world describes the situation of constant changes, unpredictable change that affects the different industries, the different individuals, particularly the educational system. With that, with this, if VUCA represents challenges, we can actually change these challenges into something positive. So volatility is one that is considered as one of the challenges of the educational sector. We can actually turn it into a vision, revisiting the vision that is attuned to the needs and demands of the economy, especially the post-pandemic, the new normal, or uncertainty. Expand or try to understand what is happening to our economy or what's happening to the or effects of this current pandemic, the different sectors, and try to develop or do some researches that would affect or that would be beneficial in order to minimize the impact of this uncertainty. Complexity, that will more or less another challenge that can be done through clarity, knowing what are the things that cause or what are the causes and effects, and of course the ambiguity that can be more or less minimized or being agile. So these are some of those impact of this VUCA, where we are in now, in order to develop a good curriculum attuned to the needs and demands, and at the same time very much adaptable to the current situation. Of course, as I have said, we should also consider the 21st century, the 4Cs, enhancing the communication skills, doing some collaboration, establishing linkages with various institutions, not only locally but internationally. And this, in a way, is one way where we can establish constant partnership or even collaboration with different institutions, different academic institutions all over the world. And of course, enhancement of the critical thinking. That's why we still consider the Bloom's taxonomy in the development of curriculum, because we still believe that there is a need to consider or enhance the higher order thinking skills of our students and become creative. Nowadays, innovation is very, very important. Innovation is now the byword of every academic institution. Being creative would mean that we can easily expound or even extend or explain to our students the meaning of this current pandemic, whether it is post-pandemic or we are in the new normal. We can easily explain it in a different way so that students, would be easily moved from one step to another because of being creative and innovative.
Sorry to
And of
interrupt
course,
you, ma'am. We have just 2 minutes.
and another thing is, of course, the study made by the Organization of Economic Cooperation Development by preparing our students become a better citizen in the year 2030. Again, as I have mentioned, FIRE, or the Fourth Industrial Revolution, was also considered by most schools here in the Philippines in the development of the curriculum. And these are, of course, as I have mentioned, the emergence of digital revolution. We now into fourth industrial revolution is shaping how we live, learn, and work in our economy. According to the study made by Dr. King, by sooner, most of these jobs would be out in the, or will no longer, or will be replaced by changes in technology. Remember, some companies now are using robotics as a replacement for individuals doing some serving and even inventory. And then another study made, these are the high-paying jobs in the industry. As you will notice, these are more on financial management,
1 minute.
information security analysis, and many more. So since this pandemic, it's also important that the socio-emotional skills should be considered in the development of curriculum, because many students actually very much affected. Some students even get into, experience depression. So the socio-emotional skills should be also considered in the curriculum design. And of course, core values, especially the RT, respect, resilience, and responsibility, including reach, integrity, care, and harmony, should be also considered in the development of curriculum. And finally, of course, the Bloom's taxonomy, which is very basic, that we should also consider if we want to have these different levels of sharing the content of the curriculum.
Your time is up.
And most successful schools in the innovation are those that are very proactive and take risks to fulfill their purpose of equipping the next generation of leaders with skills they need. So as a synopsis, again, in the curriculum review, we consider various policies, PQF, industry needs, and the book and the fire. Thank you very much and good morning. Thank you, Dr. Sheikh.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, you can proceed in full screen.
I would request Zahid sir any queries. If no, can I proceed with the second speaker? Yes. Now I introduce the second speaker of the session, Professor Ilyas Sampa, Curriculum and Programs Director, IS Philippines. Ilyas is the Curriculum and Programs Director of Australian International School and the Australian Institute for Higher Education, a translational education provider. He has supervised offshore higher education programs delivered in Manila by the Australian Catholic University and Bradford University School of Business and Law. For basic education, he oversees a curriculum implementation of various K-12 programs accredited by the Philippines Department of Education, Western Australian Certification of Education, Victorian Certificate of Education, the International Baccalaureate Diploma, and the International General Certificate of Secondary Education. He is a professional lecturer, Arlong University Graduate School of Education in Manila for over 8 years, adjunct professor, Philippine School of Business Administration, and author and co-author of several textbooks for higher education and the SHS and published research works. He is a dynamic international conference speaker, presenter, and faculty trainer. He is a member of the International Network for Outcome-Based Education Leadership Team, an organization founded and led by Dr. William Sparrow. Now I request Professor Ilyas Sampa to please start your session. Remember the 15 minutes for the session and 5 minutes for question and answers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sheikh. Is my presentation showing? Can you see my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to join all of us coming together in this important event to celebrate our commitment to outcome-based education and to try to redefine and develop its future in line with the best possible way to move our education forward. I'm sure the previous speakers, particularly the keynote of Dr. William Sparrow, has laid the foundation of multiple aspects of outcome-based education. And how to
Excuse
design.
me, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry to disturb you, but sir, we can't see your face. We're just facing the
Oh my
camera.
gosh. Okay, a minute.
Please.
Oh, all right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I'm sure that my colleagues who have spoken ahead, they have actually laid the foundation, and many of you are practitioners in a variety of ways, and you are familiar with designing. So the design process require, of course, the fundamentals of designing, curriculum designing. And after everything is designed and ready to launch, the obvious challenge that come up is that of implementation. How do we really implement? It has been my life privilege to have visited quite a number of schools and to train with fellow teachers and professors on outcome in different facets of outcome-based education. But time and again, it all goes to the point of question of how do we implement it? You know, we have, our design is fantastic. We understand everything we need to do. But why is it that we cannot really do it? So when you begin to process and talk about the issues and concerns, making it slightly challenging for implementation, key things have come up, which I've encountered time and again. And during this important gathering, I was thinking I'm going to focus on reflecting on a number of these aspects that we need to strengthen so that the implementation can be smooth and more effective. So welcome to this session to all members of this gathering coming from countries where it's morning. We are now evening in the Philippines, and in some parts it's midday. Good afternoon to all, and good evening to those who are approaching the night. So a large section of what I'll be talking about, going into details, is actually a book, something that I've published in a book, which is Curriculum and Instruction Design, where the book doesn't run under the OBE title, but actually it brings the concepts and frameworks on how to put it in practice so that it can work in class. So this will be very useful. Now, I want to begin by talking about outcome-based education as a model, as a curriculum model. And here I would like to explain that in essence, outcome-based education follows a framework we call front-loading curriculum or front-loaded curriculum model. And when you front-load curriculum, it means that essentially we are planning education or any form of learning for that matter, but basing it on the explicit, defined, desired outcomes with a vision of impacts. We are trying to look at what do we really want to happen in this world? What are we expecting from ourselves? So from our learners, what is it that we want to happen? Education at its best is committed with preparing people, transforming people to bring out the very best out of all human beings so that they can be competent, so that they can be transformed, so that they can be the better versions of themselves. That's really what we want. But to do that, we need to be very explicit. What exactly are we looking for in terms of the vision of humanity, the vision of our communities? What do we want really to happen? What are we expecting these people to do when they rejoin our societies, our communities, our workplace as graduates? Okay, or sometimes when we work in the postgraduate programs, we are concerned with when these people go back to assume their responsibilities in their institution, what will change? What are we really expecting from them? Other than simply flashing their diplomas and degrees to say, well, I have one more degree added. But what is it really that we want to happen? So we need to have a vision of that human being. And so we design from there. And then the outcomes are designed to provide a person the necessary abilities and capabilities that will make them function to the vision that we are looking at as we move forward. So you start with the end in mind, so to speak. That is the real performance outcomes. Now, these performance or learning outcomes are really very central to the design process, to the curriculum itself. And if we do not have that, then the implementation is going to be very, very tough. Most of the problems I've encountered in my work with colleagues in the educational sector, universities and schools, I realize that too often there is absence of clearly articulated outcomes. So we need to reflect on what is the place of learning outcomes in this design to really make implementation challenges less, if not to eliminate them. So learning outcomes are very important because these are statements of abilities that a graduate develops after being immersed in a curriculum. Defining learning outcomes enable clear communication of expectations to all stakeholders and remove subjectivity, especially when it comes to assessment. So if you do not have this clarity of this stuff, you are going to have your implementation very, very, very challenging. Learning outcomes also provide students with a vocabulary to talk about themselves in terms of the skills that they are developing, the abilities that they are developing. And eventually when they have graduated, they'll be talking about how much they have developed alongside this set of attributes. So who are they as human beings? How can they describe themselves to the employers, for example, and other human beings who are expecting them to be at service of humanity? So our learning outcomes need to capture all those significant elements. Learning outcomes create a healthy and predictable learning environment. If you do not have clear learning outcomes, you are going to have a situation where people tend to have a lot of conflicts. Sometimes we have a problem with dealing with the calendar, academic calendar, where so many other activities, which sometimes teachers consider not relevant, they consider them to be a disruption of learning, or they all come up. So the only way that we're going to sort out your priorities is really to say, if these are our learning outcomes, let them become our priorities. So much that as we try to accommodate all other things that we need to do as organizations, as institutions, we are doing so with clear mind that the purpose of the existence of your school and your programs is really to develop these outcomes in every learner, so that when they get out of your school, when they graduate, when they move on, they have these abilities. Then, of course, finally, learning outcomes are useful to institutional self-reflection, self-evaluation, and quality assurance. There is no way you can talk about, sometimes we do voluntary accreditation, where we actually, too often, we fabricate indicators of quality, which oftentimes are not really talking about outcomes in every subject, in every program. And so we congratulate ourselves to be doing very well on the voluntary accreditation systems, or we are the fantastic people. But when you're going to ask yourselves, are our graduates really becoming the human beings we want them to be? Sometimes we encounter that discrepancy. So you find people are really doing very well in every academic stuff you give them, but they are not really developing the personalities that you want them to develop. So there you find implementation challenge is going to be very, very hard to deal with. So how do we move on? I thought of starting with something that we talk about so much in assessment design, and it's coming from Dr. Spedian. You cannot assess what you have not defined. And I thought it's also a very powerful line for us to think about. You cannot teach what you have not defined. So when people talk about discrete outcomes, something isn't right. Because if the outcomes are discrete, then instruction is going to be discrete. Then assessment is going to be discrete. And then graduates are going to be discrete. You have difficulties to articulate in your transcripts of records, in your recommendation for your students to move forward as graduates. You're not going to articulate it because it remains discrete. So the fundament, it's very, very important that you try to reflect together in your professional communities, in your schools. Find out what exactly do we expect from an engineering graduate? What exactly do we expect from a social science student, from a teacher education student, or maybe from an elementary school student who is learning history? We need to be very, very clear with that. Leave nothing to discrete. Because if it remains discrete, you are not going to be successful in teaching it. You're going to have implementing challenges that will be difficult to deal with. So when we go back to the principles, the most important principles that guide us to really remain aligned and consistent with what we do in outcome-based education space, we understand these premises of outcome-based education. We do outcome-based education because we want to be sure that all students can learn and succeed. And we want to be sure that although every human being has the capacity to learn almost anything under the sun, they don't do that in the same way and at the same time. And therefore, outcome-based education is conscious of that. And therefore, we don't want time to become the element that prevent human beings from succeeding. As you can see from many experiences we have as we observe communities where we are living. If you really go to an agricultural community in Zambia, in the Philippines, in India, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, anywhere in the world, you'll be surprised that they don't have dropouts in those communities. Every person born in that community succeeds to learn to become a farmer, succeeds to learn to become a fisherfolk, succeeds to learn to become an artisan, whatever it is. Those people teaching and educating these people often don't even have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, but they are imbued with a lot of wisdom of experience, which they are capable to successfully transmit and empower the younger generation to capture that creatively. So we know when we say everybody can learn, it is not a myth. It's something that has been proven time and again. Bad manners, good manners, people learn, and they learn so in a successful way. Success breeds success, very important point to consider. And the third one is schools control the conditions of success. So it's very important for us to say, if we want to eliminate barriers to effective implementation of outcome-based education, if we want to ensure that curriculum and instruction can deliver real performance outcomes, we really need to consider this in mind. We control conditions of success. We decide who passes, who fails. We can control, we do control, we have the power to control what passing look like, what failing look like. So when we talk about people failing, actually, we are politicizing the learning environment. We are committed to ensure that people fail, rather than committing ourselves to ensure that every person succeeds. Schools and universities and colleges control conditions of success. Teachers and professors, lecturers control conditions of success. They decide on who passes and who fails, however way they try to do that. What we want to do with outcome-based education as our compelling commitment is to maximize and expand the conditions of success that enable all learners to succeed. And we can all do that. Every subject, every course we teach, we know what works. We know what it takes for someone to succeed. If we decide to do that, we can actually succeed as educators. Ultimately, the compelling purpose of outcome-based education is to send all learners into the world at graduation or at any point they exit the school system to be fully equipped and empowered to succeed. We are not sending weak links in society. We are sending people to the places of work, to the families they have to be part of or to build. We are sending them to their communities where they are going to be positive members of their own communities. We want to be sure they are equipped and empowered to succeed when they go down there. So this requires that in the school system, as we are trying to put our programs and our courses, we build a culture that is both vertical and horizontally articulated.
Professor
That means
Sampa, sir, you have just 2 minutes time.
All right. So we have to create a consistent and rich transformative ecosystem where everything in your education, university, or college work towards the realization of the vision and ensuring that the impacts can be achieved. So our design system follow that. We have real performance outcomes that lead us to thinking about inputs and processes. And of course, we think about assessment. But then assessments, as we understand them, they need to be measurements or what we call key performance indicators when you look at the learner, as this person developed the outcomes. So actually assessment shouldn't be assessing activities and contents we teach. It should be assessing student success on the outcomes. Here, the use of the word curriculum refers to be an intentional, systematically and explicitly planned immersion system for the transformation of a learner.
Last
And by
2 minutes, sir.
instruction, I mean defined here as facilitating process aimed at empowering the learner to achieve the intended learning outcomes. Just a minute, I'm almost done. Pedagogy that promotes active learning empowers. And so we have to be conscious of what type of learning and teaching we are doing. The teaching and learning needs to be one that is more active, because active learning brings the best out of our learners. It activates the critical thinking, creative communication, and all the best things that make people more competent in life. And when it comes to ways of assessment, which is often the major complaint that people make, we need to learn to differentiate assessment. There are many different ways to check if a person is competent or not, whether a person is learning or not. We don't need to use one size fits all when it comes to assessment. There are many, many varied ways that work for the effective
Your time
assessment.
is up, sir. Your time is over.
So this finally, aligning curriculum instruction with real performance outcomes simply mean, summarized in this way, it means that teachers teach the verb, which is an outcome. Students are helped to demonstrate that verb. Assessors measure that verb, and documenters, when you talk about transcript of record, it reflects those real performance. And that is how we succeed to bring about facing your biggest implementation challenge, aligning curriculum and instruction with real performance outcomes. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Professor Ilyas Sampa, for giving a good speech on education. Now, the next speaker is ready. I now welcome Rylan T. Delta Cruz, Assistant Principal, BNHS Philippines. Let me introduce about the speaker. Rylan T. Delta Cruz is Assistant Principal at Balanga National High School, Senior High School. And he pursued his bachelor secondary education from Bataan Peninsula State University, Balanga campus. And he qualified in National Qualifying Examination for School Heads in 2018, then promoted as Assistant Principal. Prior to that, he worked as a teacher in 2006 to 2016. Then he received Outstanding Teacher Award at Bataan National High School and Dackling Guru from City Division of Balanga and Provincial Governor of Bataan. He won second place for Regional Research Congress for his action research entitled Effects of Facebook as an Interactive Application Participation Mode. And he awarded as a Best Startup Award for his newly startup online venture at Web Studio Channel by ABCD International, and also awarded the Global Achiever Awards 2021 by Udacos Unite. And he has so many achievements like the honorary doctorate of philosophy from White University and education ambassadors with International Organization of Educators and Researchers. And he was invited for various international and national conferences for a speech. She is also a professional member with Institute of Global Professionals, a panel member with International Trainers Federation, and gold member with Global Trainer Academy, chief mentor with SPA India, and he received certificate of honor from Witty Gossip by Global Peace and Sustainable Development Summit 2021. And he assists country director with Global Literacy Temple, and also a fellow of Independent Perception and Research Hub. And he's a bona fide speaker with GRKQSF Editors. With this, I request Professor Royal T. Delta Cruz to start his speech. Remember, 15 minutes for speech and 5 minutes for question and answers. Please stick on to the time as we have a storage of time, please. Royal T. Delta Cruz, please. The time started. Royal T. Delta Cruz. Roland. Maybe no. Are you there? Zahid sir, can you please confirm whether the speaker is available?
Excuse me, ma'am Royal. Ma'am, it's your turn. If you are there, please share your slides.
Roland, ma'am. Roland, ma'am. Are you there, ma'am? Professor Sahi, if not, we can start with Rabia, ma'am, because just join Rabia.
So I think you should give the introduction of Ma'am Rabia and then she'll
Hi.
start the presentation.
So, can we start with Rabia, ma'am?
Yes, start with
Yes.
Ma'am Rabia.
Thank you. Welcome, Rabia, ma'am, for IN
Hi,
for OBE, Global Virtual Summit 2022.
Just give me a moment. Just give me a moment.
Yes, ma'am. Meantime, let me introduce yourself. Let me introduce me about you.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry to interrupt you, but can everyone please turn on their cameras?
Yes, Zahid.
Can everyone please turn on their camera? And Ma'am Rabia, can you please share your screen?
Madam, can you please, yes, and your screen is required.
Yes, ma'am. And please, after your introduction, you please share your screens.
Yes, madam. Let me introduce about you, Dr. Rabia Bhatia, founder and director at Web Studio Channel, India. And she was honor and world-class experience she has working towards bringing peace and harmony in the society. She symbolizes the spirit of outstanding achievements and excellence despite own hardships and challenges while working for humanity. And she was awardee of Rex Marvier Fellowship Global and Rex Marvier Bronze Awards awarded by FWA at Innovative Education Awards 2020 and a Teacher Trainer Award by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam International Educators Honor Award 2020. And Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan Award on 5th September 2020 Teachers Appreciation Award by Career Beacon and one of the top 10 participants in National Ability Awards, Acharya Vinoba Bhave Shishant Kusuman 2020. Token of appreciation from FEA for mentoring their students, awardee of Instructional Leader for the Year in 5th Edu Leaders Virtual Summit and Awards 2020 held on 7th November 2020. And there are so many awardees like SPSC Ambassador Sustainable Procurement and Supply Chain Ambassador, awardee of HR Success Excellence Award, and awardee of Group Missions as summoned by Charles Walter Society for Innovation and Research. And with this introduction, I welcome Rabia Bhatia to start her speech. Madam, please stick on to the time for this because of
Yeah,
the
thank you.
time. Please wind
Thank
up
you
your
so much.
speech for 15 minutes and then 5 minutes for question and answer.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I have 15 minutes to share about my topics, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. So thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction, and thank you so much, Jennifer, for inviting me on this platform as a speaker today. I mean, I'm thankful to Wajid. Actually, was facing a lot of challenges when it comes to joining the Zoom link, but it is a technological driven world, and post pandemic, we all are equipped with so much of technology. Still, we are still learning in the learning curve actually. So this is, I think, what I can call is principle to practices, because my topic is to principles to moving from principles to practices. The principles was we used to use these principles that we used to
Madam,
have like
if we
classroom
have
based
your
lectures.
presentation, can you please share your presentation?
Yeah, my presentation talks about humanities and social sciences and models of learning actually. So models of learning, moving from principles to practices. So principle, what do we understand
Without
by
PPT,
principle?
are you discussing without PPT, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm not using any PPT. I won't
Thank
be using any PPT.
Thank
It's all what I am, using in my currently in my life while teaching. I would be sharing those practices so that the audience, the viewers can take advantage of that. Because not every time we have to use our script, not every time we have to use what Google says, but what we are actually practicing in our lives, that is the actual practice, and that is the learning, actual learning, practical learning about the practicalities of life. That is humanities and social sciences. What is humanity? We all understand humanities is it's a field, it's a course which has 5 subjects: political science, geography, history, psychology, sociology, computer, economics, or fine arts, we can say. But when it comes to putting them into practice, we always going for book-based learning, right? Post-pandemic, we were using book-based learning. We were using knowledge and the skills which we used to study as a subject. There were subject matter experts in our classrooms. But post-pandemic and during the pandemic also, we learned how we can put into picture how we can use this, basically the psychology, in our daily life. What does psychology mean? A simple meaning: psychology is the mindset of a human being, right? Psychology, it can be when we are stressed out or when we are into depression. That means we are not psychologically fit. We need psychologists. We go to counselors to counsel ourselves. Similarly, during the pandemic, many people across the globe were actually facing this kind of depression, were facing stress. But then, how did we cope up? This is the practice that we learned without the books, without the lecture based classes, isn't it? What did we do in that? We actually got engaged with our relatives, with our friends. How did we do that? We came online. We became technologically equipped. We learned digital practices, right? How to use Zoom, how to use Microsoft Teams, how to use Google 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 Meets, Gmeets. Actually, there were numerous other applications that we started using to engage ourselves and to collaborate and to communicate effectively, so that we can talk about our feelings, we can share our hearts, we can share our experiences staying at our homes. We learned so many things, and that is how we came out of that depression mode, we came out of that stress mode, and today we have successfully overcome that 2 years of pandemic and lockdown actually happily, and we are in a much happy mode these days, right? We are in a much happy mindset these days. Why? Because of those practices which we put into practice during the lockdown. We understood the simple concept of compassion. which is the base of humanity. If we are not compassionate, we are not humans. The basic concept of humanities is we need to be compassionate, we need to be empathetic towards others. This is what is required to inculcate in the students, in our children as well, and that starts from the early childhood. Humanities not only focuses on the subject based learning or the book based learning, but it has to understand, we have to understand that geographically our world is so big that if we are able to collaborate with each other, we can grow much easier and we'll be more in a happier mood together. Because there's one saying, together we grow, together we win. No, single person cannot grow. This we have to make our child, make our students understand. For example, how to overcome the challenges of life. This is the practice we need to do at starting from our houses. And that is how the practicalities of our lives will be understood by the students as well. Because, you know, humanities and social sciences, history, what about the history? History is too vast, whether the Indian history or the foreign history, it is too vast. But if we are not going out to understand the different cultures, to understand the different religions, will we not be able to collaborate with each other? It is very important, not only reading about the culture, not only reading about the, you know, the religions, not about really reading about the caste or creed or colors of different religions, of different people. We need to accept them. We need to accept each and every human being in a way that every human being is important for the earth. Every human being is important for the world. Because if we have already experienced in a, you know, in a life during the pandemic, that if one life goes, the entire house goes for a toss, the entire house, the entire family are in a loss actually. So that is how social science or humanities needs to put into practice, that we need to understand the realities of life. Daily life practices should be put into picture rather than focusing on what is there in the books. We, till the time we don't experience it in a practical way, practically experiencing it in a practical way, that means the child has to step out of his house, the student has to go out of his home and then do the needful, study the culture of the world, study the religions, understand people, talking to them, not only reading from the atlas. Okay, fine, this is the country, India is a country, Africa is a country, South Asia is a country, or number of countries, the world is vast. But when we are collaborating with each other during these online meetings, we are able to understand each and every human being in a better way, because every human being is coming from a different background. But we should not forget that every human being has some unique talent in them. For example, I'll just give you a scenario. I'll just give you example of a, you know, the gardener. How important the gardener is. Fine, everybody is not equal in the status, but we should not consider the status. We should understand and consider the uniqueness and the talent of that person. And we should teach our child that they should respect the gardener even. Because unless the gardener is not there, who will be able to help us in gardening? Who will be able to help us in planting, in watering the plants, in taking care of a garden, in taking care of the flowers, in taking care of the plants? Because without garden, without plants, the sustainable future is not there. We always say go green, plant more trees. But if we do not have those skills, we need to learn from the gardener, isn't it? We as parents, not everybody is equipped with the similar kind of talents. We are not equipped with the same skills. We have different skill sets. So the child has to learn from the gardener about how to plant a tree. Similarly, a cook comes to our place to cook our food, right? Till the time a child will not go ahead and learn from a cook how to cook the food, how will you assure, or how are you so rest assured that the child, when they start staying alone, they'll be able to take care of themselves. They'll be able to understand what vegetables is important for them, what vegetable is unhealthy, what food is healthy for them. They need to understand the meaning of healthy and unhealthy food even. That comes from the cooking only. We do not have the same speciality as the cook or the chef has. So the child has to learn from the chef itself. The child has to go ahead and respect the cook who is coming to our place and helping us in cooking the food and explaining us what is healthy and what is not healthy. So these are the daily learnings. These are the practicalities of life, daily life practices. What is the learning outcome of these? The child will understand what is nutrition, what is healthy food, what is unhealthy food, how can we help our environment to remain healthy, how can we go green, how can we plant trees, more trees, what is the importance of the trees exactly, what is the importance of a single flower or a single plant or a single vegetable, how to plant a vegetable, how to plant a flower. These are the basic concepts that needs to be inculcated from the early childhood, rather than when the child enters into 11th grade or 12th grade and takes the fields, different fields altogether, humanities, commerce, science. They need to understand why they are entering into that field. What is the importance of that field? How can we make their career with that field? If they are knowledgeable from their childhood, as per the importance of each field, I am sure a child will be able to do justice whatever field they are entering in. So this is the practice that we are, using. These are the practices. These are the few basic concepts that we are using in our daily life to make my students understand, to make my mentees understand the importance of the geography, history, arts. Why should we adapt to different cultures? Why should we adapt the different arts actually? We have different kind of artists, but every artist is important, right? So they need to understand what kind of artistic skills they have. Only then they can choose the correct field, whether to take fine arts or the arts or the cooking, or they want to become a chef. This is a very, very important concept.
Have two more
Not just
minutes with
going
you.
ahead.
You have 2 more minutes with you.
All right, sure. So these are the basic concepts, and how can we integrate into curriculum? It is very easy. Make their learnings practical, rather than focusing on the lecture based class or the book based class, or you just read out from the book and teaching them, and then the class is over. No, give them a task which is a practical task. Going back home, they can work on that task, they can work on those project based learning, and then they can learn the realities of life. This is what humanities, or this is what actually defining learning outcomes and integrating them into curriculum means. When you define learning outcomes, that this is what we want from you, yes, you need to understand the smallest meaning, why every person is important. How can you differentiate between different cultures, and why all cultures are important for the world? So give them these kind of questions to help them to define the learning outcomes. And then you see where the child goes and how the child do a success in their career, make a successful career for themselves, and make their parents proud of themselves. So that is all I would like to say. So any questions? I'm open to questions. Yes, I had a short time because the whole time was gone with joining the Zoom link. But thankfully, I was able to share a small knowledge, a small experience of my life, what I am currently doing. So thanks to you, all of you, for giving me those 15 minutes in my session.
It's really interesting. Without your PPT, you have given a beautiful lecture on how the outcome-based education is real, from learning to practice, how it comes. Thank you for your input. So if any questions, request is please, if any, please. If no,
Actually, ma'am, there are not questions yet, but there are, I'll let you know.
All right. So thank you so much once again for inviting me today.
Yes, sir.
It was
Thank
great
you.
to interact. Thanks a lot once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Zahir sir, can we have Roylan T. Dalla ma'am? Zahir sir.
Yes, sir.
Are there Roylan T. Della ma'am and one more Dr. Ezron Zainal?
Yeah, I'll get to you in a second, sir. Just wait for a second.
Yes, yes. Once again, let me call Roylan T. Della Cruz, ma'am.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Morning, ma'am. We have been waiting for you. I have given introduction of you also.
Sir, can you please turn on your camera, please?
Roylan T. Della
Mr.
ma'am.
Roy. Sir, your face.
Morning.
Sir, actually, it is
I'm
not properly
Roylan De La Cruz from the Philippines. So I would like to share my slides with you, sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir. This is my presentation under the track and humanities and social sciences. So this is from Team 1, models of learning moving from principles to practices with the topic defining learning outcomes and integrating them into curriculum. So my title is Garbage String Project, Integrating Other Discipline into Fun Learning. What is this all about? This project is all about my action research a year ago, Garbage String Project. In this action research, we have 3 factors to consider.
Excuse me,
And
sir.
what are those factors to consider?
Excuse me, sir.
So we have the sport science, with environmental education, where we have the environmental issues, and of course, the values integration. So the question is, how would you integrate these 3 factors to produce a fun learning, a better fun learning? So that's how my study started. First factor to consider. Let me show you how Filipino people love the basketball. In this study, I focus on basketball as my first factor to consider, considering how I observed my students way back then. So in the Philippines, the love of Filipinos in playing basketball are very evident. You can see anywhere around, in every street, in every corner, basketball courts, football rings, where community or Filipino people, Filipino children plays a lot. Then for the next, or for the
Sir?
second factor to
Excuse me, sir.
consider, Apple, patulong nga ako. Apple, patulong nga ako ba? Technical ko ako.
Ha?
Dulo ko yung patulong nga ako.
Paano?
Pamilya ko eh. Dulo ko.
Sa signal mo yan.
Sir, off muna yung audio, sir. Thank you. Naririnig ko
Thank you,
kayo,
thank you.
sir. Sir Roylan, opo muna yung audio. Hear you.
My project is about garbage ring innovation. So it is about
Sir, sorry to interrupt you, but yes, sir. Thank you. Now, sir, you can start.
okay. So garbage ring project integrating other discipline into fun learning is the title of my my project or my presentation. I'm Roylan de la Cruz, assistant principal from City of Balanga National High School, Senior High School, Balanga City, Bataan, Philippines. So as I have said, it is under track and humanities or track 1 humanities and social sciences with the theme models of learning moving from principles to practices. Topic 2 defining learning outcomes and integrating them into curriculum. We have my title garbage ring project integrating other. A while ago, we have 3 factors to consider with this presentation or with this action research. Number 1 is the sports science. Number 2, the environmental education. And number 3, of course, the values education integration. The question is how we could integrate these 3 particular factors into fun learning. First, let me share you the first factor, how Filipinos love playing basketball. Here in the Philippines, you can see around the corner many basketball courts where Filipino children or Filipinos play. We love basketball. So this is my first factor I consider when I create this action research. Number 2 is, of course, the second factor we have is the admission that we have our problems regarding the garbage, particularly with plastic garbage or plastic waste around, especially with the third world countries, that plastic problems or plastic waste are rampant. So environmental issues concerning education focuses on plastic usage. So here in my study, I try to use the 3R or the reduce, reuse, and recycle. Next, number 3. Third factor to consider is the integration. So you values integration, make it fun for learning. So many of us think that values education is an easy subject, but actually it is a hard one, because we have to see how our learners apply what they have learned in school when they were in the actual world. So these 3 factors, we consider these 3 factors to integrate and make it fun for learning. So as you can see, this is the sample of my garbage ring project located in the schools here in the Philippines. This was taken at Bataan National High School. So as my introduction, this project started when I observed my children playing basketball inside the classroom. So while they play basketball inside the classroom, it creates problems. So it creates problems, it creates chaos. So because of that, I think for a solution, how to use this love of basketball to a solution, a problem that can be a solution itself. So this is how it started. Next, this study have the objectives. Number 1, to help in maintaining the cleanliness of the school. Of course, when classrooms and schools is clean, so conducive learning environment happens. Number 2, to promote proper waste disposal among our children, our students. Then to make throwing garbage enjoyable and to make an income generating project. Of course, income generating comes along the way when this project started. It is not one of the objectives before. When I make this project, I have problems encountered, and of course, I think of a proposed solution for every problem, such as funding for garbage stream projects, because it is quite costly. Then identifying the area where to put the project
Oh, Lindsay, you have the last 2 minutes.
based on how disseminate information, the approval of the stakeholders, of course. And here's my solution: the solicitation from the parents, consultations to the persons involved for planning purposes, consultation and meeting with the proper authority, and explanation of the mechanics and benefits of this project. So this garbage ring, this is the man who helped me to realize the basketball, the garbage ring the garbage ring project, where students put their garbage through playing. So garbage ring project, with this realization, integration of sports and environmental issues and values education comes along, because when students throw their garbage through playing basketball, they enjoy throwing garbage while they are playing, and in that way we introduce values among all of them, the values on cleanliness, the value of taking care of our surroundings. So that's how garbage ring becomes the integration of discipline into fun learning. They are playing while they're disciplining themselves and helping the environment. With this project, we make our little share for our environment to make it clean and to minimize some plastic usage and make it reusable again, or recycle the plastics, of course. And that's in that way our department got our income, because we sell the garbage, or they collect plastic garbage to the recycled area. Some of the significant stages of garbage ring project. So ito po siya, here it is. So yeah, the consultation process among the student leaders for the success of the project. The installation of the garbage ring project. Of course, some of the students happily trying to throw their garbage at the garbage ring project. And the last stage, inspection of the garbage ring project by the school authority. So significant insights, I have this, and carrying out of this innovation, significant insights were experienced. Some of the teachers and stakeholders that work together, the project is being realized. And of course, with this project, we inculcate, or we put the program of the city on proper waste disposal. We all know that we need to have clean surrounding to achieve a conducive environment for quality education. It is noteworthy to mention that the program started as a classroom project being consulted by the parents, the students, the school authorities. Now we see the fruit of labor, not only for them to enjoy playing while throwing garbage, but it makes an income generating to our department. A little, but it helps. It helps us. It is my share of our community here in the school, as I have said, taking care of our environment. To sum it up, as a researcher and observer, we invest on the interest of our learners, particularly the research lab for basketball sometimes create classroom problem to become a solution itself. We use the sports science to contribute in minimizing environmental problem, particularly to use the 3 Rs, the reduce, reuse, and recycle. Waste management focusing on reduction of use of plastics by recycling. Integrating the love of the environment and self-disciplines are values being taught in this project. Learners playing basketball by throwing their garbage in the garbage ring learn self-discipline and environmental care. Thus, fun learning is incorporated. Outcome-based education is an authentic and an exact science of learning. This project is an example of defining learning outcomes and integrating them into curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you very much for such a practical project you have
Thank you,
done
sir.
for the
Sorry for the
children.
inconvenience.
Yes, we understand, sir. You're doing a great job as well. Now, I request Zahir sir, if the next speaker is available, Ezran Zainal. Okay then.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sir, I don't think our fifth speaker. Sir, I don't think our fifth speaker will come, so we'll wait just for 2 minutes. If it didn't come up, we'll end the session.
Okay, sir, fine. I'll be waiting.
I'll end the session. Okay, I'll just inform you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your assistance and for your help in conducting this session successfully. I appreciate all the speakers for their excellent speech. This IN4OB Global Workforce Summit. It's been a worldwide summit around the 32,000 more participants are presenting, and there are some speakers as well as moderators. So a great organizers. So thank the organizers for organizing such a wonderful summit.
Thank you, sir. Any question?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, can I leave the platform?
Yes, sir.
You can.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.